The Lord be with you. A reading of the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brother and sister, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and comes after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlooker should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king, marching into a battle, would not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king, advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all of his possessions cannot be my disciple. My brothers and sisters, the gospel of the Lord.
There's two ways to go with this gospel: the easy way and the hard way. The easy way would be to just talk on the second half of the gospel. But the hard way is to talk about the beginning of the gospel. So I always like to go the hard route. So look out. What is all this hate speech about? Jesus, don't you want us to love everybody? You want us to love each other. You want us to love our parent. But you're saying to me, if anyone comes to me without hating his mother or father, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And it's like all this stuff that we learn and hear, it's like, what? Does anybody feel that way? I know I do, or at least I have in the past. I'm thinking, I don't understand this. And then we go to a little softer thing. We do talk about a little construction work and how you have to be prepared. All right, so then maybe you forget what that first paragraph was all about. But then the final line is what? Any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. Well, we're making it hard again. It's one of the most difficult gospels to understand. So I'm going to try to help you with it. Or at least I'm going to help me, because I have trouble understanding this one. First, we have to look at the word, hate. What do we mean by that? All right? Here's where we run into problems with translation again. And we run into this all the time, because the Gospels were what? Written in Greek, translated to Latin, then put into English. But the original Greek term for hate here is miseo. Miseo. All right? And Jesus uses this as an idiom that's common in Semitic Greek, in the Semitic Greek world. It does not denote a literal animus or violence toward one's relatives. In other words, you don't really hate them. All right? but a comparative preference to love someone less than another, or to place that other above the first in one's heart. In other words, God's got to come first in all of our hearts. God has got to come first. And when God comes first, everybody else rides along. All right? And it's much easier to love our spouse and our parents and our brothers and sisters when we have a strong love of God. That's what that means. It doesn't mean to have animosity or hate toward the other individual. It means to have a comparative preference, God above all. And this has been studied for a long time. This is basically what the Council on Biblical Anthropology from the Pontifical Biblical Commission, which is basically the chief interpreter on the Catholic world of Scripture. But others have tried to interpret this as well. Let's look at three church doctors. Clement of Alexandria. Hate is not the introduction of hatred toward loved ones, but a relative love that placed Christ above them. The family bond may be broken when it hinders salvation. John Chrysostom. The command is hyperbolic. We are to hate only in the sense of loving Christ more than our kin. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologia. We must hate parents to the extent they become an obstacle to our love of God, to our divine justice. The love owed to God must outrank all filial attention and attraction. So, modern day, what does the Catholic bishop say? They say that this presents the passage as a radical call to discipleship. A radical call to discipleship, urging believers to choose the kingdom above all else. That's what the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops said. Well, what's the theological significance of all this? There's a priority of the kingdom. Hate marks the first order of love for Christ. Detachment. By speaking of hate, Jesus calls his disciples to detach from worldly attachments, and that's certainly what we hear at the end of this gospel. If you cannot give up your positions, you cannot follow me. The cost of discipleship. One of the most brilliant essays, or actually it's a book, on this is written by a Lutheran martyr. And I call him a martyr because he was executed by the Nazis. I'm talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he wrote a book called The Cost of Discipleship. And what he says, Christians are out there looking for cheap grace. Now, what's he mean by that? Cheap grace. Well, you know, if I go to Mass and I do my Easter duty and I do, make sure my kids get to their major sacraments. I don't care whether they get to church every week, but, that's cheap grace. Grace is something you have to work a little harder at, the grace from God. And this gospel is about this radical call to discipleship. It's not easy to put Christ in front of everything else in your life. It really isn't. It's very difficult to do. I struggle with it every day. Any priest I know struggles with it every day. And I know each and every one of you may struggle with that. What's the pastoral application? Well, pastorally, the best way to phrase this is that we need to focus on love, all love, love of God, love of family, and not animosity. Allowing the love that we have for them, for our families and whatever, to be ordered under the love for Christ. Proper discernment when a family expectations conflict with the gospel or a pressure to abandon faith. The faithful must choose the path of Christ. Prayerful conversion. The church teaches that this radical love is nurtured through the grace of the sacraments. That's not cheap grace. When you are truly prepared to receive Holy Communion, when you make a good confession, you receive plentiful graces. And it takes a little bit of a work and a little challenge to do that. So what do we take away from this gospel? What are we going to bring home? Talk about in the car later. Because I know you talk about all my homilies in the car later, right? Sure you do. Okay. Discipleship demands a love that surpasses even the most intimate ties. That love for Christ must be first. But when that Christ is centered in your love for everyone else, it's all made better. True discipleship requires taking up the cross. Yes, it's a challenge, work involved. And sometimes it's very difficult to love someone in our family when they are not going in the direction we think they need to be going in. It's a challenge. We must count the cost and be ready to renounce everything. In other words, accept what challenges are presented to us, because that's life. That's what we call life. Life is not a bowl of cherries sometimes. All right? Life is a challenge, and we need to at times live up to that challenge. But I can guarantee you one thing, because I'm a product of it myself. God never gives you more than He knows you can handle. Never does. Whether it's a personal illness, an illness of a loved one, a battle in the family, a disagreement, some other challenge you may have in your life, God is never going to give you more than He knows you're capable of handling. It's how you handle it. And the best way to handle anything is what? Put the love of God first and let that love flow out to everyone else in your world that you love.